So in our first APBA 101 card annotation video, which we did on Johnny Bench, we got some good responses and people seem to like that. So we've got another one for you. And we got quite a bit of feedback. So you see here, we got a message from Daniel, and he said, "Thanks for the excellent podcast. How about an episode comparing a Deadball era card to a modern day card, 1883 Dan Brothers or 1911 Ty Cobb versus 2019 Christian Yelich? All of those cards are available from APBA," which you are definitely correct.
Yeah.
And we do have a couple of those cards. We don't have 1883 Dan Brothers, so that's interesting. But we picked a couple of other cards, one fairly modern card and one Deadball era card that we think are good comparisons. What cards do we have, Kirk?
We decided that a good, fun one to look at would be Dave Kingman and Sam Crawford here.
Yes.
So these are the two cards we'll take a look at. You're probably familiar with maybe both of these guys if you're a baseball fan and of history. Kingman, a big slugger from the 70s and 80s, and Crawford, early 20th century Deadball era Hall of Fame star, played with the Tigers. So we'll start with Kingman first. You think that'll be good?
Yes, but first, real quick, the most significant thing about these two cards and why we kind of picked them is that, well, what is it, Kirk? What's the significant thing about these two cards?
Both of these guys led the league in home runs for these particular cards.
Yes.
And you can see here that if we go to kind of our little kind of looks on things, 48 seems pretty obvious for Kingman, but 7 may seem a bit strange. But Crawford in his era was a slugger. He was and we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
So
two home run championship cards, one from the Deadball and one from Modern Times.
Yeah, both outfielders, both kind of medium speed, but we'll talk about that. So if we look at Kingman, let's look at his stats for a minute here, okay? We normally see the stats. It's great now on the APBA cards to be able to see a lot of the stats because you used to have to kind of look them up, which was kind of a fun thing to do to kind of learn things. But they do correspond if, things work out right. Kingman, you can see here, hit a league-leading 48 home runs and had his career year, All-Star 1979. There's that great game between the Cubs and the Phillies at Wrigley Field where everybody's jacking home runs and Kingman's blasting those
two rockets that are still
down the street and stuff. It's great. It's so fun to watch. And Hall of Fame pitchers are coming in and just getting raked,
Yeah, giving up 7 runs.
His 288 average is great. For a guy that had a 236 lifetime average, he was pretty much an all or nothing guy. I mean, he hit 442 lifetime home runs. He'll never be in the Hall of Fame. But if he would have had more years like 1979, he would have been. All right. Yeah. And his 79 card is a monster. He also struck out a lot. This is, 131 times there. You can see in 1982, we had 156.
Several times he had 130, 140. I think 2 or 3 times he had 150. Everybody knows that Kingman was like the big strikeout guy of his time period. But 131 strikeouts now, what would that? You'd be tied for 30th?
Yeah, that's nothing. You're almost a contact hitter. Maybe, yeah. I mean, so yeah, it's a different era. But I think it kind of can work into what we're trying to get across here. So here's Kingman's card. All right. 2015 version of it. This card easily could be a single column card that would have either way a 1 on 11 and a 1 on 66. Okay. Yeah. And so he has a lot of power in that sense, but you would normally get
a 1 5 1 5. I think,
probably a 5 here. And, you think a 5 there if he had a single count?
But the problem is he didn't hit.
That's a little too many.
He didn't hit enough doubles. He only hit like 19 doubles, I think.
Yeah, he almost hit more triples. He might get a 4 and a 5.
Yeah.
And that'll get him a couple, because what he has is, if you notice here, some 2s in there, and they need to get him a few triples in there.
Yeah.
He also stole uh, 4 bases. So
Mhm.
they gave the 11s across right here to kind of work that in. And what this does is give a more accurate version of his card. The other thing I like about this is how many ones he has in the second column too. But yeah, you're pointing out.
Got the 5 here, you know,
Mhm.
and in this 4, the 4 is going to give him some triples because frequently in the second column, 4s and 5s, they
Mhm.
don't revert to like the D pitcher, whatever it is against them, or it doesn't have the special thing that says look at result 5 or 6. It's
Right.
just kind of is what it is. So that's going to help him a little bit too.
Mhm. You know, he'll have the 7s across up here, a 7 here, and a 7 here. Those are rough. But if you roll a pretty solid number and you get one of these 3
Got a
zeros,
lot of ones.
you got a good chance to get a home run. And he does have that fun 4 there and that fun 5 there. Yep.
The way I look at it, if I roll a 44 and I get one of those second column 7s or a single and steal or something like that, that's okay. It's almost like
Mhm.
if he had a 7 there, or even sometimes with 22, if he had a 7. It's a
Mhm.
little more annoying if you roll a 33 and you end up with a single.
Mhm.
But you know, that's reasonable. But there's going to be lots of times where you roll a 44 and then you roll something like a 25 or a 15 and you
Mhm.
get a home run. That's
Mhm.
pretty
Yeah.
cool.
And the other thing that's interesting about this card, I mean, he does strike out a lot. You can see you got 1, 2, 3, right? 4, 5, 6, 7 strikeouts or
Yes.
13s, right? That's still quite a few in any era, and that was a lot back then. He was never a guy that walked a lot, but respectable with 3 walks.
Walks is all right.
13,
Yeah.
42, and 45. That works. He
Walk
also
like
has
15,
4
20
eights.
times. Mhm.
Um, which I think will help him against some weaker pitching 4/8 instead of the traditional 3.
Yep.
Um,
Bump him up. Probably instead of hitting 280, he hits 288. It's about that much of a
yeah,
difference.
it's a little bit of a nudge there. The other thing that's nice about this card is he won't hit into a lot of double plays.
Yeah.
You know,
No 24.
24 is a double play number. You don't see a 24 on this card. So he will hit in some, with the some of these ones up top here, right? But yeah, it's a nice card. It's going to hit the ball in the air a lot, deep, and he'll be on second base a lot. He's an average runner.
Yeah. Barely average. I mean, he's a speed 8 up here. I think 6 or 7 gets you to slow. So he's just barely in the medium range.
Mhm.
Also, this is a terrible hit and run card. Okay.
Yeah.
One, you're gonna rip yourself off of the ones that you might get wherever you
Mhm.
get them. He's only got 131. Okay. Usually you have 2. You get one down here frequently on oops on
Here, I'll
on
clear that for you.
63. But and then all the strikeouts. It's just you wouldn't ever want to
Yeah,
hit.
this would not be a card you'd want to hit and run with. So that's Kingman. We can come back to him.
Just
And
one real quick thing. Leave Kingman
yeah.
there for a second.
Mhm.
Pull hitter.
Mhm.
Great against lefties, +3, and not so great. +3, -3 there. So PL pulled left, right?
Mhm.
So that kind of hitter. Yep.
Mhm. And then the other guy we want to kind of look at, and then we'll kind of bounce back here, is Sam Crawford. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and here's Sam's card. Now, take a quick look. We'll come back to it. Let's look at his stats for a second. This is more lifetime. Sam Crawford is Hall of Famer, and as you can see down here in yellow, he right here. Is the all-time career leader in triples, 309 triples. So you look at this column right here, and it just, all these years
Leading
over
the league 20
20.
plus several times.
Yeah.
This, he led the league in home runs, in 1908, like we're talking about, but also in 1901. Now, rules are a little different. They're still figuring out some baseball rules back
Mhm.
then. Ball bouncing into the crowd or something, or over a fence or barrier, is probably a home run. They probably had some weird ground rule home runs back in that
Mhm.
time.
Yep.
97 home runs in this first part of the century is pretty good. And really, though, he was a power hitter. And
Mhm.
309, a triple was the power number. So
Mhm.
if you want to throw in the home runs and the triples and kind of add those together, it's like the equivalent of hitting over 400 home runs.
Right.
That's the kind of player he was, which is what Kingman is. He's a guy that hit almost 500, but 475-ish home runs. Okay, so similar.
This right here always kind of bothers me. He's so close to 3,000 hits in a.
This play. Well, I mean, he only played that one last year. He hit 173, so it was time to hang it up.
Yeah, he was 37 by then. Yeah, but it would have been nice. A lot of RBI. He hit 309 lifetime hitter. So this is the type of player we're looking at. You can also take note that later on in his career, and I'll kind of show it to you here with this stolen bases. Take a look at this right here. All right. He didn't steal bases like a lot of guys. I mean, I think it's interesting that he's 32 years old and he steals 42 bases in 1912.
Yeah,
and that's his best ever.
And that's low for this era. I mean, there's lots of guys that steal a lot more bases.
Right.
It was just part of the game, stealing bases, bunting, runs, moving guys over. It was a small ball type era, and that's what this card will reflect as well. Now he also, you'll see, has 4 8s. But this only helps you so much.
So you have the 8 here.
Yeah. Weird 35 8 here. You don't see an 8 on 35 very often. And he's got a nice little 64 9. All these 1908 cards are a little strange because, as usual, they have an error number on 53, and like an outfielder, he's got one of the 15, 16, 17 numbers. So he's got that. But every single one of these 1908 cards, and I'm replaying the Detroit Tiger single team replay, they have an extra error number on 23. He's got a 19 here because the fields were crummy. The gloves weren't that good. They didn't have lights, so they played in crummy weather. There was spitting tobacco all over the ball. So
they had a lot of many balls. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
The card tells the story of that. And so we had that. And I had a game the other day. I was playing the Tigers, and they were fielding 3 that game because of their crummy catcher catching. He was like a 6 or whatever. And I rolled 23 like a million times for they made like 5 or 6 errors that game. Lost it because of that. Simply because of that. So you see here, he was a bit of a free swinger as well. Only 2 walks here on 36 and 45. This is kind of standard for APBA, that if a guy has 2 walks, they're 36 and 45. I don't understand that. I wish that they would just go 13
and 45.
And 45, and then you move this 40 over the 36. I can handle it a lot better. You feel like you should get a walk when you do that.
What's even worse is if you have something like, I don't know, a 13 on 13.
Well, yeah, like Javi Baez, yes. But anyway, so this 22-0, that's very powerful in 1908. You don't see a lot of guys get that. I mean, we know he only has the 1s in the second column at 11, 33, and 66. So far through 19 games, he's hit 1 home run for me, but he's hit several triples. We got a lot of 2s here. And we see he did steal his 15 bases, but to get his average here, he's got to he's not going to get a 10. Usually that might get you a 10 on 15. But he's got the 7 there. So we've got his stolen bases coming in the second column with these 11s that he's got, which, I don't mind 11s. I mean, they don't drive in a runner from first, but the guy ends up on second. It's kind of like a fake double,
Right. He really only has that 7 on 65 here. And then the rest of it is him on second or better.
Get him in the second column.
Yeah.
Something good's happened. And he's got this extra chance at a home run right here with this, that 5 there. You get a guy in first or, first and second, first and third and all that kind of stuff where the 5's a home run. It's going to be a home run. I haven't rolled yet for him, but it will be. So, yeah, that's pretty good. Now, you notice how many strikeouts we got here? How many 13s on this card?
Count them. No 13s.
0.
Right. Yes. And then how many, double play 24s? None.
We have 0 24s now. He could end a double play on the standard things. Like he's got the 12, 25, 27 can be a double play. There are some X's in the 1908, so you get that sometimes. They got the 43-12 here, which is a little different. I mean, it's, so therefore it's an okay hit and run card, but he's only got 3 31s that, end up being the single runner 2/3 if you get somebody fast in front of him. So maybe not the best hit and run card.
If he walked more, it would maybe be viable, but with 2 14s and 2 31s.
And you're going to rip off the 7 sometimes. Straightaway hitter, right there. Speed, yeah, he's medium here for basic game, but in master game is a 14, so almost fast. I think 15 would get him fast. So yes,
Right on the edge. Yeah.
right on the edge of that. He's got a 34 arm, so pretty good arm out there. I mean, Kingman had 31 arms, so he had a decent arm out there. He just had no range because he was a big guy.
Yeah, I can put both of them up here if you want
Yeah.
to. Yeah, so like if you're looking at some of the master level stuff, I mean Kingman could throw it pretty hard. He just didn't have very much range out there.
Yeah.
And he's a different type of hitter too.
So we know Kingman, if you watch the old replays of games, he was a big dude, 6'6", 210. I mean, very powerful. But in 1908, 6 foot, 190 pounds was a big guy. Crawford was like that. Also, with all these strikeouts, I don't think we mentioned it. How many 24s do we have on this Kingman card?
Yeah, we don't have any.
We have none,
yeah,
which is
so,
awesome. I always rather have that guy strike out. Okay.
Right. This Kingman card really looks like what Dave Kingman did in 1979.
Yes.
And it would be a fun card to play with,
yes.
I think. For a number of games. I think people probably enjoyed that card.
I think it would produce well, but in a certain way, you got the Deadball and you got the more modern card, but they're both very similar sluggers for the era. They don't hit in double plays. Yeah, you don't have Crawford striking out, but nobody really struck out that much then. Free swingers that don't walk a lot. You got as powerful of a card as you can in 1908 for somebody who's going to get a lot of triples and some home runs. Very similar in some ways. So
yeah,
Crawford here hit third most of the time, where Cobb hit fourth. So those sevens, because there's a lot of A and B, A, C pitchers. It's tough sledding. So a seven's not always a hit. If you got a guy on first, you're not.
Yeah, you're not going anywhere.
So that in some ways, I think this card. If we do the little card calculator thing here. This Crawford card, I think, has an extra 7. I mean, I think this card, if you play this not in the 1908, it's going to produce better than that. Let's take a look. Kirk's got his little card calculator thing that he did for
the Apple blog on there.
The Apple blog. You guys can look that up. So let's see here. How many 14s does he have here? He's got
2.
3, right?
14s?
There's 2. 14s.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, he does have that 22 get him hit by a pitch every once in a while. How many 0s and 7s? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
6.
7. Yeah. 7. 7
7.
zeros.
Yep. 7. 4 zeros and 3 sevens.
How many 8s and 9s? He's got the extra 8, so that plus the 2 9s, so that's 6, right?
Yep.
No 10s and no 11s.
Yep.
So this card against standard pitching nowadays should hit 324.
Right.
And it's got that extra 7 and the extra 8. And they need that so that he can maybe, because right now in mine, he's hitting like about 290 through 19 games for me. You just lose so much with those 7. You got to have it.
And that's when people talk about normalizing things and or when you have cards that are to produce or reproduce within the season, and in your case a replay back in this era in 1908, those things don't help as much. It needs a little boost, a little kick, where if you took this card and we're playing with the 1908 Tigers against lesser pitching, B's and C's at times, or not even high level A's, he's going to hit a little higher. Yeah.
So the Kingman card, let's see here, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and he's got 5 zeros and 7s and 3 walks. And that should be a 297 card.
Because of the extra 8, you think?
Yeah, the extra 8. If you didn't have that extra 8, it's 273. So APBA always seems to fall on the better side, usually 99% of the time I've noticed. So they're like, oh, is he going to hit 273, or are we going to let him hit 297 and hope that it evens out? They're going to go with that.
Right.
Hope it does. Because, maybe he faces more A pitchers and it doesn't work out that way, Yeah. So
So this is, our second kind of go at just looking at some cards, and we appreciate Daniel's question and suggestion about doing some comparisons of an old and a new card. If you have any comments, suggestions, ideas, feel free to throw them our way in the comments on this. We're gonna have this on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. It'll be through the APBA blog, and or you could get contact us through our podcast Double Take, and we'll hear you out.
well, real quick before we leave you, I didn't add in the extra 8 for Crawford.
Oh,
So he's
I thought
got
you
6
did.
walks, 7 good hit numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I had 5 instead of the 6. That gets him to 347.
Wow.
And it does look like a card that hits
It
347.
does. When you have a 7 on 15 and 55.
Yeah,
Um,
even with the 2 walks.
yeah.
So like if it was like standard modern day pitching, it's like a 347 card.
Mm-hmm.
That they're hoping with all the awesome pitching in 1908 is going to hit 311. And like I said, right now it's hitting about 290 with that
Yeah.
card.
Right. So he probably will hit a little over 300. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they're hoping for. Yep.
All right. So we thank you for checking this one out. And again, if you have suggestions, just let us know that, and we'll work
Yeah,
something
we'd love
out.
to do this again. Just give us some good feedback like Dan did. Yep.
Yeah. And then we'll take a stab at something else. All right. Thank you.
Yep.